Most technology-based projects fail because they forget about people. What I don't want Optify to be is a me too, another one of those. I think we have to take a new approach to how we deliver services. Many of these trust companies now, the margins are being compressed. The ability to provide services at a lower cost is now critical. Let's get the trustee, let's get the proprietor of the family office to focus on where they add value. Be a trustee, be an amazing trustee, and let us handle the IT, the ops, the accountancy, and all the other services that are needed to service the client, but actual fact that don't add value per se to the family office.
If you're going to work in an organization, I don't want to be drowned in bureaucracy. I don't want to be following a piece of paper and swiveling my chair and entering a piece of, another piece of data into a different system in order to make that happen. It's 2025. I want it to just work.
Let's take all of that searching away. Let's take all of that pain of uncertainty away and provide a competent, secure, transparent service tomorrow.
We are going to go and do something very, very, very impressive and very scary. Very scary. Welcome to our podcast, where we're really excited to be able to talk about the evolution of technology, process, industry, and the financial services, and obviously the opportunities for digital transformation. And lucky enough, of course, to be here with very long-term friend, business partner, Stuart Richford, to talk about what we're ultimately looking to build. So Stuart, great place to start, and just love to hear from you a little bit more about your vision, our vision, and why we're here.
Yeah, thanks, Al. I think first off, look, it's wonderful to be working with you again. I'm really excited about the future and the team we've assembled. But if we take a step back, so I think there's a significant opportunity for tech-enabled operational transformation throughout the trust funds corporate services industry. So this is beyond just systems, but how do we integrate business process, data, services, financial outcomes to enable our clients to achieve success?
And some of the things which we know are important to them, certainly at the highest level, if you consider the board, it's how do I create a great customer experience? How do I improve my processes and drive productivity within my organization? How do I create company value for ultimately their ownership structure and their shareholders, and importantly as well, kind of try and manage that risk downwards, right?
Yeah, so if we look across the industry and think about the challenges, most of the mid-size, large-size trust and corporate services are wrestling with the same challenges. They've got core books of record systems, they've got document management systems, they've got a little bit of banking integration. The challenges they're having are typically common. And it's one of process orchestration across the business. Processes don't run in silos. Processes run horizontally across all those vertical systems. It's a similar challenge to the banking industry that went through 10, 15 years ago. How do we orchestrate all of those payments, those FATCA self-certification processes, you name it. How do we orchestrate that work in a auditable, controlled, safe, integrated manner that ultimately takes the friction out of the service provision?
Absolutely.
And gives the customer the transparency in the service they need and expect?
Absolutely. There is, and you'll recognize this as well, and I think we both have, is that around, I suppose, some of the core technology that sits in a trust and corporate service provider, there is a Frankenstein's monster, or ecosystem, perhaps a better terminology, of other bits of point technology that solves point solutions for clients, right? And that comes through It's onboarding, it's document management, it's payments, it's all of the kind of ancillary services that we know an organization wants to be able to execute, as you say, across that horizontal.
So, you and I have been consultants for a long time. We've helped people implement, most of the core systems in the marketplace, right? We know the ecosystem. So what I don't want Optifi to be is a me too, another one of those. I think we have to take a new approach to how we deliver services across the industry. And my inspiration really for Optifi came from two different sectors. One is the investment management industry. So and the other is actually in food manufacturing, believe it or not.
Bring it on.
So if we but let's talk about the vision. So there is a concept out there called BPaaS, Business Process as a Service, right? So the idea being, if you take an investment house from 10, 15 years ago, they used to have a front, middle, and a back office. Today, they outsource all of the middle and back office technology services to a BPaaS provider, such as F&Z, SS&C, Avaloq increasingly, and there's a few other smaller players. That doesn't exist in our sector.
No, very well established model, and you're right, and quite one that's made a fundamental difference. So if you want to pull the thread a little bit on that for our sector, or the sector that we've got that domain expertise and experience, what do you think are some of the opportunities for existing providers to disrupt a little bit?
So you can start seeing it happening, and I think it's worthwhile noting that because the ambition of Optifi is huge, we're going to have to start somewhere much, much smaller. But let me answer your question. You can see this in the industry already with the larger players. We can see, the dominant platform in the industry, Quantios Core. You can see the integration, the horizontal integrations that they're going through with other system providers that have a niche in a different area, whether that is risk screening, document management, and these different areas. So you can see the industry moving towards it. My vision for Optifi, if we take it to a much, much smaller level, because it is extraordinarily difficult to make seismic change occur in 1,000-person organization.
Where do we start, right?
All right, exactly. Where are we going to start? So we want to start in the family office sector and the small trust company sector. The reason being is that as a team of 6 at the start, with our partners, probably more like 30, but we need to work with clients where we can handle their size, we can handle the transformation, so that we can help them go through this process in a controlled, structured, safe manner. The vision really is, if you take a family office that does investments to its clients, let's get the trustee, let's get the proprietor of the family office to focus on where they add value. Be a trustee, be an amazing trustee, and let us handle the IT, the ops, the accountancy, and all the other services that are needed to service the client, but actual fact that don't add value per se to the family office.
And that's the bit that's, I think, really worth drawing a small bit of attention to, which is the difference that we feel there is a real opportunity for the industry to take advantage of. And that's the operational orchestration, the capability. Where do you see some of the inefficiencies in the industry today?
So that's a good question. So let's talk about compliance. We've done a lot of financial analysis of lots of different trust companies over the years. Typically, 10 to 15% of revenue is being spent on compliance.
Correct.
And it's, if you look at the reports that come out of the JFSE, not necessarily particularly successfully. And that's a huge number. And that's because these industries have grown up in very manual, labor-intensive operating models. They've got time charge base fees in many places. We know those are changing towards fixed fees and activity-based fees, but still, by and large, many businesses have time-based fees. So there's a curious disincentive to be efficient and effective. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's changed in our industry from, let's say, 10, 15 years ago? 10, 15 years ago, trustcos were massively high margin businesses. Yeah? A very good business model, very successful in driving value. Times have changed. Many of these trust companies now, the margins are being compressed. The ability to provide services at a lower cost is now critical, because there are, whether you're a privately owned business or a private equity owned business, the drive for margin is there and it's prevalent. And the businesses are now under margin pressure, probably for the first time in the sector's existence, coupled with the massive improvements and leap forward in technology. We can now tackle the challenges of a geographically dispersed subscale market on a cost-effective basis.
And that's incredibly insightful. And I think you beautifully articulated there the vision that we believe that we can impact and we can make a difference to, the opportunity that there is in the market, and some of the problem statement. What I'd love to be able to delve into a little bit more actually is talk a little bit about the company that we're going to create, the soul of something. What do you feel makes a great, successful entrepreneurial organization?
So this is my second go. Obviously, we, in our past roles, we've worked together for a long time. So we were very fortunate to found, grow, scale, and successfully exit a consultancy previously. So I want business, games, sport, even marriage has taught me that life, or more accurately, the way I wish to play life, is that it's a team game. I am much more effective in a high trust, high performing, diverse group of people. So I want to work with people who have got your back even when you're not in the room. I want to work with people who are dynamic, who take calculated risk, who drive things forward, who attempt things that haven't been done before, or even if it's just attempt things that they haven't done before. And I think if we get that cohesive unit together, we can talk about the team in a second. We've got a very, very diverse, disparate group of people that we've managed to pull together around this core idea. We will be relying on skills that don't exist in you or I. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they will be relying on skills that exist in us that doesn't exist in them. So I want to work with dynamic, accountable, open people to drive a business success. And I think those three things are critical in any high functioning team.
You're quite right. And whilst we have a very lofty ambition, and whilst we recognize that in order to ultimately achieve that ambition, that goal, we are going to need to be agile, be flexible, be dynamic. When we think about our values, these are some of the things that, we're considering that we want to be in, quite right, the soul, the DNA of our company, because we are going to go and do something very, very, very impressive. So very scary, very scary, right?
Well, let's come back to the scariness. You and I and the team are trying to do something that hasn't necessarily been done in our sector.
It hasn't.
Even the conversation we had last week with our potential client, they haven't found someone who is doing what we're doing. So that's going to take a lot of trial and error. That's going to take failures. That's going to take missteps. That's going to take a group of people who trust each other, pick each other up, redirect one another, and therefore move forward down a path to an approach that's more likely to be successful. And I think that's a very, very important characteristic in a team, is being humble enough to acknowledge something's not quite right, or maybe you got it wrong, but still trying to get it right.
It's a beautiful trait of our a beautiful British trait, isn't it? That humility, and it's something I value personally at one of the highest levels. I think that ability to understand and recognize and listen, and then ultimately take those learnings into something that constructively can make a big difference to the next phase, the next iteration of the thing that you're building. And what I've found quite invigorating, or find generally quite invigorating, is that slightly different way of approaching things that comes with building a product. We've worked in a services industry for quite some time, and whilst we've worked with products and bits of technology, we're really we're delving deep into some very innovative frameworks to kind of actually help get stuff done.
So again, people will know watching this, you and I have got a long consultancy background. We've done a lot of operational work and things over our careers. That's why we have had to hire and have co-founders that are not like us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is critical. So you think about Alex, our CTO. He comes from a enterprise engineering background for one of the world's largest financial organizations. He's put in BPaaS to a global organization, right?
Absolutely.
That skill set doesn't exist in you or I. So, but it's fantastic that he's joining our team. And if you take Cara, she comes from a pedigree of product management, product ownership in some of the world's largest organizations. Yeah, she's an absolutely incredible lady, and she helps you and I always find and understand the customer voice. And she's passionate about it, and again, help us cover maybe blind spots we have, right?
Well, I'd say that angle actually, and you're quite right. And that first off, that talks to the level of ambition that we have. It's enterprise level of ambition, right?
But start small, right?
But start small. quite right. To do those things right. But the soul of that ability to be able to drive product innovation, listen to the customer, that's an angle that I think I've been able to, quite enjoying embracing, and hearing that and doing some of those things first and up front, and going, actually, we think we know what the industry wants. We think we know what our clients want. What do they actually say?
Absolutely. So I've been very fortunate, with my time off the past sort of 5 months, where to really have a think about what I want to do in the next sort of 10, 15 years of my career. But also it's allowed us a wonderful opportunity to work with new people and really, really road test our idea.
Yeah.
So I may have had the idea, but I've deliberately taken myself out of it and let Alex, Cara, you
test it, right?
Road test it with real customers. And what's interesting is that although our idea was on the board, it was on the outer ring and not in the middle. Yeah, and that was an interesting process to go through. And as a consequence of that process, we now have a better idea of what we need to launch with, and more importantly, how we'll get this business off the ground. And I think going through that process, I think the way I phrased it to a friend was, before we spend hundreds of thousands of pounds of other people's money on this great idea, shall we check and make sure we've got a customer first? When we joke, but it's true. Just because the idea seems good in our head doesn't make it good in the market. So let's road test it. Let's check it. Let's make sure we've got a customer on the end of the hook before we spend hundreds of thousands of pounds.
Great. Really, really excitable, actually. So one thing I'd love to delve a little bit deeper on with you is probably a little bit about the art of the possible and that roadmap. What are some of the things which, we're seeing from that voice of the customer, we believe the industry needs, and personally, sort of in my mind, I'm thinking a little bit more around, the application of that, the latest buzzword AI, the application of orchestration, some of the problems, the levels of innovation that we think we want to solve in the short, medium, and long term.
So let's start small. Let's think about a classic family office that's been looking at after an ultra high net worth for a number of years. In many cases, it's being run on spreadsheets, certainly at the outset. It's being run on laptops or a server in the corner of the room. Yeah. It's being run on reports based out of Excel, maybe a bit of Power BI.
In 2025.
And let's be honest, it's being done by, let's say an accountant who, whilst clearly intelligent and clever, they're not a data engineer, they're not a cloud architect, they're not a cybersecurity expert, right? So, but they are doing a good job and they are delivering value to the customer. So our initial vision is carry on being an amazing, investment advisor, investment manager, structure of wealth to your client. The ultra high net worth is the typical example. Let us provide all of the environment, cybersecurity, accounting, systems, and operational support that you need to run your business in a secure, effective, reliable manner. Where we will make money is we will have, we hope, 5, 7, 10 clients, and that's how we make money, by scaling and being efficient and driving value through multiple customers.
There's something really interesting in what you've just said, actually. So and I'd love to delve into that a little bit deeper. So you're right. So there's a box that we will provide, a one-stop shop, a single pane of glass.
Absolutely.
For our clients, family office and or trusted corporate service to be able to interact with from a technology perspective, and also allow them to make the most of and optimize their operational capability underneath that. Talked about the concept, multi-tenant is the word that I'd use, but you talked about this, doing it for multiple people, how we build scale.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we think again, let's use the family and office analogy. In order to keep the price point down, we have to provide a very scalable, very blueprinted offering. Now, the good thing is we, having worked in the market in the sector for a long time, we've got partners who provide those services. We know the system providers, we know the cloud providers. So for me, it's about packaging that in a way that delivers value quickly, so by next Friday, but in a sustainable, scalable, secure manner by design.
Quick, you're quite right. It's that quick, rapid, demonstrable value. But to get to the bit that's really powerful, and I think where a lot of, we believe we can make a massive difference, and where we can drive value for both our customers and ultimately for our organization, is taking that infrastructure, taking those operations, those ways of working, and doing all the things which we've been trying to talk to our clients over the last 2 years to do, and
absolutely
automate it.
So let's think about the alternative. Yeah. Let's think about the 10, 15 person family office, right? They They have to go and find an IT managed service provider. They have to go and find a new system. They have to get off Excel or some Power Automate monstrosity they've created. And they actually have to start providing robust investment reporting. They have to provide auditable records to various different tax authorities, right? That's hard. That takes a lot of time for that family office proprietor to do. We do that every single day for 10, 20, 30 years. This is our bread and butter. So for me, it's how do we package our intellectual property into a way that is easy to buy and delivers demonstrable value next week to the proprietor of the family office. Let's take all of that searching away. Let's take all of that pain of uncertainty away and provide a competent, secure, transparent service tomorrow.
Something I've genuinely been quite passionate about. And ultimately, it's a simple equation. I think throughout my career, I've always been trying to solve with a lot of the solutions that we put in place is if I spend X, what am I getting? What's the Y that I get in return? Right?
Absolutely.
What's my return on investment and how? And I think what's going to be a big part of the soul and core of what we develop and what we see being able to make a difference in the industry is being able to provide that sort of clear articulation of return on investment, both from a capacity, both from a risk. There's both direct and indirect, of course.
So enterprise value, as we know, breaks down into a couple of things. There's customer value, there's financial, creation of money, and then there's risk management. So though if we can't articulate our service in ways that touch those points, then we can't describe the customer value. We don't deserve to have a business, right?
Love it.
But we've been working in these areas for a long time. As a consultant, I've done an awful lot of commercial analysis, client profitability studies,
absolutely,
attaching operational costs to client revenue. How much is this relationship actually worth? What's the client lifecycle value?
Your MBA was in this space, right?
Exactly. So so we just to touch on that then. So we hit on I was struggling for a muse of what to do for my postgrad thesis. And really struggling. Time is ticking.
Tell me more.
And then all of a sudden, I was with Deutsche Bank, and they'd very kindly sponsored me for my studies. And I'd gone around the various different departments as a relatively young man, and I suddenly realised this ultra high net worth called Dan, that he had relationships with all the different departments, and each of the departments believed that the other department made the money. And so I had a very simple idea that was, well, if it's happening here, there must be other examples. So I basically ran the first database, the first study into how the bank created revenue and created cost and attached the two together. And over the next 3 to 5 years, we completely and utterly transformed all the way Deutsche Bank offshore operated at the time. There's clients we targeted, the services we provided, and it really gave me a good insight that, well, one, I can make a difference in an organization, but also that whilst people kind of knew, who the good clients were, nobody knew who our best client was. Everybody knew who the second best client was, but nobody knew more than 2 out of the top 5. No one had more than 3 or 4 out of the top 10. Right.
I want to know who's the best client.
Well, I can't say that. But actual fact, that one's okay. It was our internal custody team.
Interesting. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
There's a couple of bits that you called out there, which actually sort of hark back a little bit to the soul, certainly for me, or provoked a bit of thought on the sort of soul of an organization or a company, because I know that you still spend time with some of those people, that temporary organization of people that, went through that massive bit of transformation that made and did something different for a period of time. And I know collectively we've been part of those waves of momentum and creating something within an organization. And personally, I think it's some of the things that, you're most proud of and have them some of the most impactful, impact on your own, I suppose, your own being as a human. So tell me a little bit more about creating that
I talk about
wave of momentum.
So I talk about, when you look back, moments when we were great. So now here was a group of people working together to do something that the organization had never done. If we go back to how you and I met at Barclays, right? So we were running that was it. We first met running the project that carved what became Zedra out of Barclays.
Correct.
Right? And that was across tax, legal, technology, ops, everything across 6-7 jurisdictions. It's a massive project, and it had never been done in under a year, right? And we then migrated to Avaloq, and that had never been done in under a year. And I remember it was
right, we pioneered the first legal novation, right? The first time someone went through that novation process to get from
and if you look back to Charlie and her legal team, an incredible innovation that they drove, which allowed us to be successful and to be part of that team doing something truly new, creating a new business. We effectively took large parts of Barclays International through ring fencing. That had never been done. And this disparate, broad group of people came together, brought all of their skills, so into driving towards a common goal. And I remember we had 100 days to go, and you stood up and gave your 100-day speech, and we had a room full of people, and my only contribution to it was obviously slightly sobering, because I basically gave some examples where some banking migrations in the industry had gone spectacularly wrong, and it's a high-profile ones. Just Google, I think it's NatWest and a few others,
TSB,
right? They're all out there, right? Yeah. And so I said that the best response that we can have to what we're doing is that no one will ever know what we've done.
We're not in the news.
Because we closed, even though Barclays Opticast still exists, we effectively closed the bank.
Yeah.
That could have gone spectacularly wrong.
Indeed, it's a great thing. And then, of course, sort of moving on a few years, after all the really exciting projects and change we'd sort of all had the chance to work through together. You're quite right, carving out Zedra, putting in platforms like Avaloq. You're standing up and really driving a new consultancy business, and obviously I joined you with that, and I think again a similar sort of wave of momentum and excitement and passion and drive and all of the accountability, all of those things that you were talking about there, to take something that was and almost ultimately triple its revenue.
Oh, it was
within a year and a half.
It was a crazy journey. I think the board described it as we were running a bit hot.
Yeah.
But what a journey! And again, what's the catalyst for that, right?
Forgive the pun.
No pun intended, because catalyst was obviously the name of the business. Yeah. But what was the difference between 5 years before and that day? And I'll go back to what we talked about at the beginning, and is partly me maturing and growing up as a leader, but I took great care about recruiting senior talent in different spheres with different capabilities. So if you take the classic interpersonal skills, the red, green, blue, yellow, the red's the driver, the blue's the introvert, green's the touchy-feely people person. You can see I'm a red. But knowing that, my very first strategic hire was somebody not like me, right? If you remember Leslie, like she's a green, right? She sees things that doesn't even register in my mind, and I need that to be better.
Quite right.
And as a consequence, I trusted her insight because she had knowledge, skills, and insight that I don't possess. And in order for me to be better, and in order for the company to be better, we need that input. And that's what a high-performing team really is.
I fundamentally believe that to be true. That diversity of thought, that diversity of intuition really does make success. And also to delve a touch deeper into that, the concept of shared success. And it's from that particular, that particular wave of momentum with Psionic or Catalyst as was, that kind of concept of real shared success model being something which I think important to me for building an organization properly.
So I want to be in a team. I enjoy being a part of a team. I genuinely do. And that's where I thrive. But a team is only successful if the team works together to achieve its goal. And therefore, this is business, right? This isn't us kicking around on a park on a Sunday playing another local team. This is serious. This is life-changing potentially. Now, I want to create an environment where if we're successful, we're all successful. So, why should I, as the notional leader, take all the reward? If you've given outside performance, you've helped the company grow, why shouldn't you be successful?
We stand on the shoulders of giants.
Absolutely.
It is a team. You're right. It's game theory. The team wins, right?
So yes, and yeah, even if you look at evolution, there's two broad paths. You can be selfish or you can be collaborative, right? I know I'm better in a team environment than a selfish environment. That's just fact. So let's create a team environment that rewards and encourages success. Now, don't get me wrong. We as leaders sometimes have to make difficult decisions for the benefit of the whole. You might get a bad actor, something bad might happen, right? But the fundamental structure of shared success, the bigger pie, is one that I believe drives and naturally incentivizes people to give their best selves to the role for the long term.
So if I ask you to kind of maybe just bring that, all of that thought round, that train of conversation, and also some of the other dimensions that we've spoken to, what's your sense of how that is going to change or impact the industry that we're looking to, make a difference, and what we're trying to build? How do you feel that's going to turn the dial, for want of a better phrase?
So there's already models out there. We can look at JTC, an extraordinarily successful business for a very, very long time. They have a shared success model in place, from early doors. So the model works. There are other models out there. If you look further afield, this has been solved previously. We just need to take it and apply it.
Yeah, quite right.
So I think, but let's imagine the alternative. Let's flip it on its head. Let's imagine an organization where no matter how good the business does, you just get paid. That doesn't sound very good. Let's imagine you bring your best self and you do some amazing work. Well done, you. Yeah, that doesn't excite me, and it doesn't excite a lot of other people. So that's why we want, if you think about the environment, the ecosystem we're trying to create, we want those dynamic individuals. We want them to be team players. We want them to be open. Well, those dynamic individuals can just go get another job as well. Why should they be with us? Well, we've got to create an environment of high trust. We've got to enjoy it in some sort of intrinsic motivation, but also on a practical level, I've got children to put through university too. I want to retire. I want the relative financial success that comes from running a great business.
So great to hear. So I'd like to take you on a slightly different track, if that's okay, and maybe talk a little bit more, or bring you back around to some of the challenges we're seeing in the family office space, as well as the trust and corporate services industry, and companies that are looking to modernize their operations. And also, if you think about, I suppose, the firms that might be hesitant to take a step to adopt new technology and potential new ways of working, what kind of conversations do you think they can have, and what things should they be thinking about when looking to take that next step and
So I think we,
explore the kind of solutions we're going to provide?
well, this is it. So I think, to take the good consultant path, let's take a step back. What is the business trying to achieve? Right?
Yeah.
Are you a manager-owned trust company? Are you just trying to see yourself to retirement? Are you looking to be acquired? Are you trying to grow organically? That's a very intrinsic thing, and it's not for you or I to impose our view onto the client. That's their journey and what they want to do. So the question then needs to be, well, how do we help you achieve your best outcome? Yeah. So what does that look like? What's that journey? What's the vision for your business in 5 years? And then let's take a step back and look where we are today. Right? So we take a good friend of ours, they're looking to put in place succession planning. Well, that now takes an awful lot of non-technology work. What are the tax implications of creating a EBT? How do we do that? Where's the talent? How do we find the talent? How are they going to create an organization where their staff want to be part of, right? None of that's technology based.
No.
But when you apply the layer of technology, it's let's look at their customers, let's look at the services they provide. How can we provide that on a more scalable, more secure, more transparent, more evidential basis to allow the talented people to do their best work and take some of the grunt away?
So put yourself in the shoes of one of those amazing talented people that sits in the organization that's looking to take advantage of the platform, the capability that we're looking to provide. What are the kind of things that you think are going to be on their mind around what's important for them and how to...
So they're concerned about risk. They're concerned about facing up to the regulator in 6 months, 18 months time. They're concerned about client service. They're concerned about enterprise value, EBITDA, all the normal financials. They're concerned about finding talent.
I believe it comes back to the point that you were saying very much before. They want to be fulfilled. You want to work, if you're going to work in an organization, I don't want to be drowned in bureaucracy. I don't want to be following a piece of paper and swiveling my chair and entering a piece of, another piece of data into a different system in order to make that happen. It's 2025. I want it to just work. Right?
Absolutely.
So that I can go out as, an employee of trust company, family office X, and do the things which
add real value,
joined to do,
and you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Because most people have an intrinsic need to be valued.
Yeah.
Yeah. And none of us around here are billionaires, but I still want to have a career of value. I want to make a difference to a small number of people's lives and careers, and that's a wonderful thing to do. So if we can take away some of the pain that the trustee feels, let the trustee be a great trustee. Let them look after their client amazingly well.
Yeah.
And should we just do the bits they're not very good at?
Yeah. And and then they get to start putting round pegs in round holes and square pegs in square holes. And all of a sudden the puzzle, accelerates, right? And accelerates towards, you're quite right, as you mentioned.
It's corporate strategy 101, right?
Outcomes.
If you're not very good at something, and if it genuinely doesn't really add value to the business, outsource it. Focus. One's corporate strategy should always be on focusing on where one creates the most value for their customers. Now, there has to be some certain functions you perform, and we understand that. But if we find areas that don't align to our skill set, aren't naturally in the people that we typically employ to do these services, give it to someone else. A trust company by its nature isn't an IT firm. Might be trying to be tech enabled, but they're not really.
And it gives them the opportunity. We want to be able to.
They're not really tech businesses, are they?
You're quite right. We want to be able to give them the opportunity to differentiate themselves on the things which they know that
absolutely
the core of their by being their values and their soul.
Help them be successful. I mean, that's the goal. Yeah.
Is there any advice you'd give to companies like that when it comes to adopting new technology?
How do you mean?
So
help me understand your thread of thought.
No, indeed. So where I'm sort of keen to explore a little bit more detail is there is a lot of technology out there. We talked about that earlier on. There's a lot of disparate systems that naturally will need to be pulled together, orchestrate. But when it comes to actually getting those in quick, you talked about it earlier as well. You mentioned that certainly in our instance, we want to take away that pain. We want it to happen next week when it comes to deploying things. When it comes to rolling out features, we want that to be regular and fresh and feel like it's an application that kind of comes through on your phone. But that journey for our clients, or just a little bit of insight around some of the things that they need to think about, or advice, or hold in their minds when it comes to adopting or bringing on new technology, even perhaps thinking about bringing it, business cases perhaps.
Yeah, so most technology-based projects fail because they forget about people. The business is run by people, so the technology works.
Yeah.
Right. We could mention lots of names here that are across the industry. Fundamentally, the technology works pretty well, providing you've got the data, providing you've got the base services on which it stands. It works well. The challenge is getting people to adopt new practices, new governance processes, new ways of working in order to leverage and take advantage of the technology. Any technology project that forgets the people fails, or certainly fails to add the value it should.
Quite right. I think that's a beautiful thing to kind of coalesce around. You're quite right. It is about the people. It's that change adoption. It's making sure that the people who are going to do things differently tomorrow when the technology lands understand that, buy into it, feel it, need it, want it.
So let's take a simple example. Working with a client right now, and the project name on the top of the tin it's a migration from 5 Series and Flying Boat to QCore. Right? It's a project you and I have done 100 times. That's not the real project. That's not what the business is trying to achieve. The business is trying to achieve commercial outcomes on the back of its investment. The business is trying to change its compliance posture. It's trying to move its services forward. Now that's tech enabled, but none of those things are about technology, right? So we're helping them review their commercial model. Yes, we'll set up the system to support the commercial model, but we have a once in a generation chance
Absolutely.
to change our fee structures, to change how the business works, to introduce activities and processes and things in a much more structured way, getting people off spreadsheets. Why are action points being circulated on an email? It should just be in front of you. I should know where I am when I just rock up in the morning. I shouldn't have to dig around and remember to find those compliant monitoring points.
There's an industry myth there to be busted, and perhaps there's a whole nother podcast to delve into on that. So on that note and that bombshell, I would love to I think it's a perfect place to wrap up. But where can just on that note, where can people find you? Where can find us? What's coming soon?
So the new business is launched. If you're watching this video, we have launched our consultancy. We will continue to provide the advisory, project assurance and project execution services, which is where we've built our careers. We are building the family office platform. Hopefully we shall have our first clients to announce soon. And you can find me on LinkedIn or in the comments below.
www.optifyplatform.com.
That would be it.
Thank you, Stuart. It's been a real blast, incredibly insightful, and I've humbly enjoyed this conversation. So thank you.
It's great fun. Thanks. And I look forward to working with you again.